Hello, my name is Ellice Patterson. I'm the founder, executive, and artistic director of Ability Stance, and I'm so thrilled to premiere the virtual premiere of our show, Branches. This is a dancer-led show where dancers have become choreographers and have explored a myriad of themes at the intersections of climate justice and disability justice. I'm so excited to announce the choreographers Krishna Washburn, Leslie Taub, Kylie Kean, Lauren Sava, Claire Lane, and Dara Capley to be able to really explore their own creative identities in this work and how that can be fueled through our Ability Stance mission to promote intersectional disability rights in a new way. And we're also thrilled to introduce Krishna Washburn, who is new to us but not new to the disabled dance world, to be able to be a dancer and choreographer as well as an audio descriptions workshop lead in this process for us. The choreographers not only created their work, but they also audio described their work. And with the help of Amber Piercy, who is our audio descriptions editor, really tried to bring the narrative into the description for blind and low vision audiences to ensure that our work is accessible for all. I also wanted to highlight a special shout out to the lead composer for this show, Erin Rogers, who really did an amazing job of bringing all of the themes musically together to show the united element of how music can play a factor in the movement of this work, as well as Andrew Cho, our Director of Music and Operations, for their support in this process. Thrilled to have also be a part of Liberty Mutual as our grantor for this work, without which would not be possible, and to also explore how we can explore these themes from our homes and exploring a variety of different rehearsal processes virtually and the creation process virtually to ensure that our work remains accessible for those who are still quarantining at home, as well as just showing the power of what can be when we are allowed to have the space to think creatively and freely from our safe spaces. So I hope you enjoy the show.
The audio description for this piece is doing exactly what audio description is supposed to do. It's welcoming the audience into the purpose of the art.
Hi, I'm Leslie Freeman Taub, and I am a physically and intellectually disabled dancer here in Washington Heights, Upper Manhattan, the little Dominican Republic, New York City, and I am walking back from recording my solo work at my community dance studio, the Dance Project of Washington Heights, which is about 3 blocks from the home that I share with my partner, my 2 daughters, our dog, and my 2 grandchildren who are 3 and 4 years old, and for whom my partner and I are the primary caregivers while my daughter is in college. Their mama is in college, my youngest daughter. And yeah, sometimes as a person who struggles with sensory processing issues, it is not possible for me to work in a very crowded and peopled apartment. So I'm really lucky to have an option with a very low carbon footprint, and that's the Dance Project of Washington Heights for me. I have some studio space there, and yeah, also my granddaughter takes bilingual ballet classes there. It's a really amazing place and a great resource. The piece that I am working on, just I guess as a heads up, it's called Flashpoints. It's full of images of burning, images of extreme heat and toxic air. There are references to the orange skies that we saw over New York City just a few weeks ago, and the whole piece refers to the late David Buckell, who was a human rights attorney who specialized in queer human rights. He was a person who, he was part of the team that represented Brandon Tina's family. He was part of the cases that got marriage equality in New York State and nationally. He really had an amazing career as an attorney, but he retired to be a very passionate environmental advocate, and he took his own life via self-immolation in an act of climate protest in Prospect Park, Brooklyn, before the self-immolation that happened on the steps of the Supreme Court years later, certainly when nobody was really paying any attention. He was an amazing ancestor, and this isn't a particularly sad piece. There's a lot that's grotesque in it, I think, but he was not a particularly sad person. He was a person of great compassion for the earth and all living things, and I'm offering this piece up in his memory, and dedicating it to all the other people like me with compromised immune systems who are threatened by what's happening to our planet. This piece is inspired by the last choices of David Buckell, a queer ancestor who died by self-immolation in an act of profound climate grief and compassion for our burning planet. Prospect Park, Brooklyn, 2016. A breath, hands at her throat, head arched back, then hands skim body. Upstage center, Leslie's back is to the audience. She is a single flame. She shimmies hips and swirls hands up her curves till only left hand continues to flicker. From a distance, you might think her fingers curled a loose fist, but this is just her hand's shape, stumps of digits splayed and reaching. Her right arm hovers above her breastbone. Her right elbow juts out sharply. Another breath. Then left foot and cupped hand flick to the side. She pivots. Continues flicking, alternating sides, forward. Hips shift on a spot as she touches one hand to her heart and her opposite arm reaches out. She alternates heartbeats, beats into undulation, hands at chest, at throat, releve. She gasps into arabesque, glides right, glides, jumps, glides, jumps, glides, jumps, then slides into a wide second position plie. pushes the arches of her feet to lift her, though her knees bend. Her arms wing, heels touch down and press up. Hands rise to her chest, her throat, her face. Heaven. Up close, you perceive her more clearly. She grimaces. Her hands, small and gnarled, press her pale, scarred face. Palms travel down into another undulating heartbeat. She folds. Beat, beat. Now arms are winged, pushing out deep, effortful breaths. She points her right toes behind left ankle, 2 small jumps pitter-pat sideways. Her arms curve in front of her and sway as she jumps from left foot to right to careful tiptoe. Gingerly she continues. She continues, but a heaviness catches her, spins her, dizzies her. She desperately pushes on, trying to catch up to what David knew, what he carried with such care and terrible comprehension, why he worked so doggedly to build a sustainable haven for and within a doomed city in a dying world. Again she rises and plies on forced arch. This time her right heel starts at left instep and her bent knees carve a diamond of negative space. She balances on the balls of her feet as her heels pulse up and down and her hands attempt to shield her raw face, to push back at toxic air. Leslie is no longer the fire, nor the smoke-choked breath. She is herself, human and vulnerable. She takes a bowed step backwards, rubs her grafted forearms together rhythmically, then frantically, rubbing, chafing, she begins to pace. She paces in loops, then determinedly forward. Her gaze locks on you. With steady eyes, she lifts her left palm as if she might reach to touch your cheek. Instead, she slams her right fist into her own palm. Raising arms higher, she alternates left fist into right palm, punches ladder up until she places her forearms parallel, one atop the other, with a narrow window between. She stares out, steps back, and her forearms press the window closed. Her eyes disappear, then her arms bent inward slide open till her blunt, nail-less fingertips brush, fingertips lace, and arms extend, stretch overhead. Face upturned, she swings down, making a 3/4 circle. For a moment, palms turn gently outward before she grips the soft skin of her inner forearms, forcefully clawing and abrading. She chafes her arms, arching torso, face, neck, breathes a ragged contraction, release. And release. She rises to slip forward again. Her hips sway in a propulsive figure 8. She hip sways at center, circling her wrists so that her hands swirl up her body until, at heart level, only her left side continues, wrist and elbow curling in sync, gathering speed and oxygen. Her right hand slides to her sternum, up slightly, pulses. She crumples. On her knees, she swings and side falls, crawls forward, drags, drags. A deep lunge toward you, palms open. She places her offering down. Lunges right, another offering. left another. She has drawn the soil circle that David scattered around himself in his last moments to contain his fiery death, to minimize harm. She lays down inside the circle, then rears up, heart skyward, head thrown back, screaming.
Hi, my name is Lauren and I'm a dancer with abilities and so excited to be a choreographer for this show. My piece is about the intersection of climate change and mental health, and I was really inspired to create a piece on this because climate, environmental justice is a really big, overwhelming topic. We don't know what's going to happen, and that unknown is naturally going to take a toll on mental health for individuals. So my piece is divided into 3 sections. The first part of the dance is about eco-anxiety, which is really about the anxiety that is associated with this unknown loss of autonomy and control that comes with what's not knowing what's going to happen with the environment in the world. And so this has been associated with feelings of despair, overwhelm, fear about the future. There was one really striking article I found from a study out of Europe in 2021 that showed that among 16 to 25-year-olds, 75% believed that the future was frightening, specifically when thinking about climate. So it shows like this has a really big toll on people, especially young people. And so then the second part of the dance is about solastalgia, which is a concept that comes from a philosopher, Glenn Albrecht, which really compares this to the feeling of homesickness and like the feeling of loss and grief when special places in the physical environment that one loves are lost. And this has been associated with feelings of helplessness and sadness amongst those that have lost these really important physical spaces. And then finally, the piece ends around mutual aid and how social connection with one's community can actually be a source of survival and prevention in climate crisis, and really like the need to look out for each other. And so my process for creating this piece started by reading articles for each section of the dance, and then Andrea and I pulled out quotes that resonated with us, and then set choreography based on those quotes. So I hope you enjoy the piece. In their living room, Andrea is standing facing back and rubbing their fingers together. They are wearing clothes in blue, green, and brown shades to represent their relationship to the changing climate. Andrea is a non-binary Puerto Rican person with a dynamic mullet and tattoos. Their space is surrounded by plants they have lovingly grown and cared for. A highlight is their monstera, a tall plant with large leaves and one long stem. With the first chime of the music, Andrea looks to their right, examining their surroundings. They continue rubbing their fingers together. With the second chime, they look again to the left, unsure of what the future holds for their beloved space. Their right foot drags, making a circle on the ground so they can feel the earth below. They turn to face forward with arms slowly reaching up and then down to the floor until they are close to the ground. They examine their hands, feeling anxious about all this uncertainty. Then their left hand lowers to touch the ground, making circles with the earth,
trying to make sense of the unknown. Their body then jolts back and forth quickly to the left side, a reaction to what they feel. Their left hand returns to making circles on the ground. With another chime, Andrea rolls on the ground and then sits up to face back. Their head slowly circles 3 times. They are feeling overwhelmed by what is to become of this planet. There is so much uncertainty, which at times is too much to think about. They lean their body suddenly forward and then start examining their fingers. They nervously pick at their fingers as they lay down on their back. The picking builds in intensity, as does their anxiety, until they pull their hands away. They turn to their side in the fetal position, seeking comfort, and then their legs drag them forward, reluctantly back to sitting. Their arms quickly circle forward and brush away earnestly. As a compulsion, they pull their head to the side and start grabbing at the sky. At times, they feel a need to prepare for the worst. They come to kneel and start massaging their face, as this burden to prepare can take a toll. Then, they suddenly break away from their face, throwing their arms and rolling backwards to gain momentum to stand up. Feeling frustrated as to why others do not care, they throw their arms and quickly start pacing in a circle. Moving faster with the music, they throw their body to the left and circle their head. They swing back, continuing to move quickly to let out their frustration. On the piano notes, Andrea jolts their body forward, lower and lower, and then quickly swings up and back down. Their right shoulder leads them back up again, and then the left one circles. But they are unsure if they should feel anger or guilt. They finally melt down to the floor and lay down on their belly in exhaustion. Andrea pushes through the exhaustion to sit on the floor. They remember a memory of one of their favorite places and feel a wave of sadness over what the future holds for this beautiful piece of the earth. They draw out their memory with their fingers on the ground, as if tracing in the sand. They begin to look around as if they are back in that beautiful space. They grab at the memory, pulling aspects into their drawing as they continue tracing on the ground. The grief at what should become is too much to bear, and Andrea turns on their knees to face away from the drawing. They look to both sides and up 3 times, trying to shake away the feeling of loss. They make a circle with their arms and pull their hands into their chest. They repeat, but this time completely coming in to hug themselves. They tuck their head and roll until they are sitting with legs outstretched in front of them. Their toes begin to wiggle, and they trace their legs, trying to find some solace. Calmer, they look back to peek at their drawing one more time. Andrea tumbles backwards to stand up and immediately starts pacing again. With intensity, their arms shoot up and out at a firm 90-degree angle. They remember a story they read of an important bridge being lost and disrupting an entire town. They trace semicircles while thinking of this lost bridge, and then turn to face back as their arms quickly shoot up and break. Overwhelmed, thinking of the grief they must have felt, their body falls down and back up, with their hands moving in search of hope. Their hands slowly fall in grief before urgently grabbing at their head and pulling them forward. They think of places close to their heart they do not want to lose, as their hands pat down their body until they are close to their ankles. Their body sweeps, making 2 big circles until their hands center them again by pulsing from their heart. Their hands grab, reaching out to both sides of themselves. They slowly reach up with their hands as an offering, before bending down at the knees and spreading out their hands. They hop to the side and try to brush off this grief before turning to face the back. The anxiety begins to slowly creep back, and Andrea rubs their fingers together again. They reach out with their hands grasping to connect with others going through this. Reflecting on mutual aid, they use their fingers to sprinkle pretend seeds on the ground in front of them, hoping to ignite social connection with others. They get close to the camera and continue sprinkling more seeds of connection. By planting these seeds, they will build connections before it is too late. They bend down and trace 3 circles on the ground, and then reach up to make one large circle using their entire arm. They jump and spiral their arm, gaining new hope from these connections, and then push away anxiety in turn to face backwards. Andrea's fingers rub again with anticipation. They try to flick off grief and anxiety with their left fingers and scoop into their body the hope from looking out for others and others looking out for them with their right. They come to sit with their fingers interlaced, representing the interconnection that is needed to move forward.
Hi, I'm Dara. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a white woman with long dark hair, currently seated in front of a window next to a big leafy plant named Kevin, and I have a bright yellow t-shirt on that reads Abilities Dance. This is my second year dancing with Abilities and my first time choreographing on the company. I'm so excited to be here. My piece Monarch looks at the infrastructure that prohibits disabled folks from amassing wealth and draws a comparison to the disruption currently being caused by climate change to the monarch butterfly's life cycle. The piece reflects on the need to amass wealth to provide security for oneself during a climate disaster, and how being prevented from doing so can actually prevent growth, just as the unusually increased rainfall is affecting the monarch's ability to reproduce. The process has been really wonderful. The dancers are amazing. I'm so grateful that they welcomed this process into their homes and were willing to try anything, including climbing the walls a little bit. Thank you, Carmen, Andrea. Erin Rogers made this cool, weird, beautiful score that I just think is really awesome, and I hope you love it as much as I do. Thank you so much. Amber Piercy and Krishna Washburn both led really informative and thoughtful workshops on audio describing for those of us that are new to this. Thank you so much, and double thank you to Amber for her one-on-one help. Big thank you, of course, to Ellice Patterson, our leader, first for this opportunity, and also just for all of her guidance and support during this process. If you have any feedback that you would like to share with me, I'm on social media with my full name, Dara Capley, and I would love to hear if any thoughts or feelings are invoked by what you're about to see or hear today. And yeah, thanks for being here. I really hope you enjoy. Carmen and Andrea are in their homes, wearing nondescript, loose, comfortable clothes. Both lay on the floor of white hallways with visible doors on both sides. Carmen lays on her back halfway in a doorway with only her lower legs in view. Andrea is further away from the camera, upside down, curled into a ball with their feet on the wall. As the music begins, both dancers navigate their surroundings while staying low to the ground and moving as if through a heavy, gooey substance. They find pressure into the walls and floor with their hands and feet, using this pressure to rotate, change levels, and invert themselves upside down as they work to find big, expressive movement and taste the space around them. They drift closer to the camera by exploring their assigned spaces and pathways. They find themselves limited by their constricted spaces, either having to shorten their movements or accept that limbs that reach their fullest through a doorway will not be seen. They come to unison on their backs. With hips lifted and resting on the wall to camera's left, their legs wave back and forth in small, soft movements as if treading water. Carmen and Andrea press the foot furthest away from the camera into the wall and thread the other leg underneath, twisting to balance on their shoulders and stretching their hands towards the camera with tension. The tension builds and then releases as they roll away from the camera into a ball and come to hands and knees. Each stretch a leg behind them and let that leg pull them into a seat facing the camera. They slowly trace their hands up the wall as they stand, finding the edges of their stage, and then the hands trace back down the way they came as they let the weight in their bodies pull them again to the floor. They arch and reach with the side of their body on the floor, exploring how they can find expansive selves in the limited spaces they are put in. They release this arch, and both dancers find their left hands reaching up and pulling them to stand as if the hands decided this action. They observe the left hand resting at their sides, palm facing the camera. The left hand begins to flutter and twitch, causing discomfort in the dancers, visible in their faces. The hand moves towards their centers. Both watch with suspicion. Andrea starts moving quicker, more focused, sharply kicking and rotating to the right, pulling hands in front of their face and sliding them over cheeks, straining chest and face forward. Carmen moves as if still encased in goo, her fluttering hand journeying to her center. Andrea squats, ripples left, grabs their foot in hand, and releases to swing the leg. They sit, and suddenly their speed runs out. Carmen's hand finally reaches her center. She races through the same movements Andrea did. Carmen keeps moving quickly to stand back to the camera, wiping palms on thighs and squatting with left hip outward, arms bent, jutting out from her side. Andrea tries to rise, but moves as if pressed by water. Losing her speed, Carmen's arms inflate and expand. Andrea finds their speed and arm circles overhead to pull them front on one leg. They dive upper body down, then swiftly rise and spin, landing with right leg raised to the side. Hips swivel, arms scoop around something heavy, stepping back. They get stuck in a tall posture. Carmen once again tries to catch up, repeating Andrea's movements, and finds herself in the same tall posture. Carmen's arms pull backward, counterbalancing her rising front leg. The movement is fluid, while Andrea slowly lifts their leg through substance. Carmen turns to lunge facing back and is suddenly weighed down. Andrea's heel drops, arm swings as they race towards an unknown resolution. Right hand pushes into left as they squat and deeply fold. Spinning to face front on one leg, they step to tiptoes, then drop. They stand and roughly wipe their cheek, then lunge, throwing their head back. They kick behind and fall to the floor. Andrea stills with hands on the floor behind them and chest arched to the sky. Carmen has been stuck, moving slowly, out of sync with Andrea, but makes one last effort to catch up to them, finding the same push, release, spin, kick, throwing themselves down to the floor. Finally, in the same kneeling posture as Andrea. To the sound of crickets, they slowly sit up and observe each other, unsure of what they see. They study each other as the music drifts back in, and slowly they stand. Andrea continues to observe Carmen as Carmen once again feels her hand begin to flutter and journey slowly to her stomach. She begins the same movements from earlier, pushing through the same pattern as if once again weighed down by force. Andrea begins walking and leaves the frame through a doorway. They re-enter through a different doorway in the hallway and observe Carmen briefly. Andrea repeats this walking, gaining momentum as they go, checking on Carmen as she moves through repeated motions. Carmen moves slowly but purposefully into a deep lunge with arms curved overhead. Andrea meets her in this shape. Finally, in unison, they move with resistance and strength, but lack the oppressive weight from earlier. As hands closest to the camera dive in a circle behind them, sliding legs forward and back. They rotate, raising bent legs behind them and throwing arms down. Hands wipe up their fronts as they step forward. Hands flick downward from the wrists as they show us their backs. The right hand quickly wraps around their bodies to wipe the shoulder blade and wind them up for a turn. They spin with wide arms to face the camera and dive hands down to press forearms together in front of their faces as they rise to tiptoes. They release, then hands drop with flexed wrists, one at a time. With flexed hands above them, they squat facing back. The arms blossom sideways. They face front with backs of hands pressed into their cheeks and wiggle their fingers, tasting the air. One leg extends sideways with a flexed foot. Arms extend wide. They fall into a lunge. Hands circle at the wrist with expressive wide hands and rest above their heads like a crown as they stand. The elbows pull together in front of their faces, splaying tense hands sideways. Hands scrub down their cheeks as they pull invisible strings from their faces. Fingers unfurl and extend down before sharply jabbing into the stomach, sending a flexed foot off the floor. They lunge and twist open to the camera, stand with chests splayed open and gaze skyward. They push their faces through their hands to drop into a crouch with the left hand stretched above them. Crouching, they look up at their hands and slowly rise. Once standing, the hands flutter and twitch towards their stomach as they slowly back up into their hallways and away from one another. Their focus never leaves their hands.
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm a choreographer and a dancer in my work entitled Fire in Our Veins. I am a white woman with curly brown hair that's currently styled into 2 pigtail buns. I'm wearing a black tank top, and I am sitting against a white backdrop with twinkly lights. Fire in Our Veins is a work that explores the impact of PFAS chemicals, also known as forever chemicals, and the work was created in collaboration with dancers Lauren Sava and Linda Lin. The UN Declaration of Human Rights states that everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of themselves and their families. Yet the chemical industry is preventing this in 99% of Americans. PFAS stands for pearl and polyfluoroalkyl substances. They're more commonly known as nanoplastics or forever chemicals, and they're used in a wide variety of common household items. These nanoplastic particles seep into the soil and water, which is where they then become ingested by human beings. Studies have shown that these chemicals can be found in most organs in the body, including blood, breast milk, placenta, and even the brain, which causes a host of problems, including infertility, cancer, and neurodegeneration. First of all, the chemical industry has known about the toxicity of these substances since 1961, yet have hidden their findings from the public and the wider scientific community. The chemical industry is directly infringing upon our human rights by violating our ability to maintain a standard that's integral to the health not only of ourselves, but of future generations. Learning about these statistics in my research on the intersections of climate justice and disability justice made me feel incensed, enraged, and deeply saddened. It's up to citizens like ourselves to pressure the government and large corporations to regulate plastic use. So in order to incorporate these ideas into a movement-based dance process, I worked collaboratively with Lauren and Linda. We read 2 articles on the subject of PFAS and their impact from The Guardian, and then each of us journaled to record our reactions. We each picked 10 action words from our journal prompts to embody and to create a movement phrase that was authentic to our emotional expression. You will see in the subsequent work that it reflects our collective anger, anxiety, and passion to build collective power to continue the global fight to ban plastic use for the health of all humanity. Please enjoy.
Claire, Linda, and Lauren stand facing us, dressed in black and rich reds. As a pulsing heartbeat in the music ascends, first Linda, then Lauren, then Claire, raise the back of their right palm to their cheek protectively, curling their fingers into a fist and hitting their knuckles with the left palm to zigzag the arms down the belly. Inhale as connected hands float up to cover their mouths, seeking protection from polluted air. Exhale as arms open and float into a wide arc. The dancers circle their arms and palms meet, lifting skyward as if carried on a breeze. Suddenly, the left leg stomps to the floor, heaviness jolting through the arms and torso. Right fist swerves upwards, elbow bouncing and rebounding into wide open arms, dancers twisted in a deep lunge. Right hand pokes to the front, and dancers sweep their arms left, then right across the body, a desperate but futile attempt to cleanse the air around them of nanoplastics. Dancers bring their hands to cradle their right cheek as they approach us, fingertips stretching the skin of their face in deep inspection. One by one, the dancers disappear out of our frame, Lauren undulating her hands in a wave, Linda spiraling her fingertips, Claire walking her hands step by step, just like repetitive patterns of unregulated chemical exposure leaching generations of people of their health. Claire, Linda, then Lauren rise slowly, gliding their right hand up their left arm and tracing across their left hip. They grab and squeeze the skin of their stomach, chest, face, and skull, a pervasive sense of contamination building inside their organs. Tension snaps as dancers exhale and return their right palm to their cheek, seeking comfort, protection, and relief. Linda's arms slice towards us, followed in canon by Lauren and Claire. They repeat strong slicing motions, then punch their right fist into the air before cradling their head in their hand, channeling their anger against the self-serving interest of big oil corporations that are violating human rights. Linda and Claire sigh on an exhale, and their arms arc open as they disappear from screen. Discordant piano notes quicken and crescendo in the music as Lauren begins to solo, anxiety evident in her frenetic gesticulation. Right, left, she cuts her arms across her body, undulating, punching her fists and flicking her fingertips in the periphery around her. As Lauren kicks her foot towards us, Linda rises, walking in a slow circle around spiraling wrist and fingers, collecting herself. Her right arm unfurls on a high diagonal, then pulls her right left, then right again. Hands palpate against the skin of the chest and face faster and faster. She pauses in a brief moment of stillness, one hand covering her mouth and one hand grabbing the crown of her skull, an attempt to cover exposed skin. She turns abruptly and melts down, extending her arms in a plea. Lauren, Linda, and Claire find unison once more, grabbing their right elbow with the left hand as the right hand rises to caress the forehead. Lauren, depleted of her frenetic energy, melts down out of sight. In the music, a pulsating heartbeat emerges as Claire and Linda poke their right hand towards us, fingertips coming close to frame. Their left palm snakes down the top of their arm, matching the other. Fingertips peel apart, arms opening, and right hand returns to curl into the heart center. Magnetized by our presence, Claire and Linda's fingertips curl open and closed 5 times, each time pulling their bodies closer to us, entreating us to use our collective power to fight for clean air. Together, the dancers repeat Linda's solo, right arm slowly uncurling upwards, seeming to tug the body to the side of its own volition. They cradle their head in their hands, a note of despondency in their appeal for us to action, before melting from view. Lauren, Linda, and Claire slowly ascend back into our view, hands pressing and massaging the skin of the face. Left hand covers the mouth and right hand sneaks up over the back of the skull, hiding their eyes from view. They retract the hands away from the face, mouths opening wide in a silent scream before the hands recoil. Arms lightly glide down the body and carve a wide circular pathway as if embracing us in a hug. Hands push away and the right fist sinuously curves forward before they swat their arms, right, left, Fluidly, the arms swell in a pulsating wave until the dancers abruptly flick the fingers forward, matching the pulsing reverberation of the music. The dancers curl their bodies, contracting their elbows to their chest. Right leg lift towards us, exposing the bottom of the foot. Again, the arms repeat their familiar bounce side to side, and the hands lower to the hips, sliding down the skin of one thigh and chasing down the other in tender examination. The dancers' palms slide against one another, as if wiping away the pent-up rage, sadness, and fear that has collected in their bodies. Claire, Lauren, and Linda, now intimately close to us, clasp their hands in front of their mouths. The force of the whooshing breath from their elbow blows the hands open. They lunge left and right, carving their arms into an X that spirals open to face the back. Arms and torso circle to brush skyward before collapsing. Left arm pokes sideways and right arm sneaks to meet it. Forehead taps the back of the hand and body rolls, arms and legs following in suit, twisting and arching to collect. The dancers' spines undulate like seaweed, synchronizing in the rhythmic vibration of their breathing pattern. For the last time, the dancers cradle their cheek in their hands and the fingers curl outward towards us, bringing our energy back into their hearts. Like a double helix, the fists intertwine as they trace their pathway up, carrying with them hope and lifted spirits. The arms circle and palms extend open in an ultimate plead before the right hand retreats to cup the face. The hand pulls away as the mouth opens in silent scream, not a scream of terror, but a scream of fervor and ignited passion to fight for systemic change. In silence, Claire, Linda, and Lauren slide out of our view as the hands trace their careful descent down the body. While the chemicals infiltrating our bodies linger forever, the impact of the fire in our veins can match an eternity.
Hi, my name is Krishna Washburn. My pronouns are she and her. And I'm reporting here from the dark room, up in central Harlem, the beating heart, in Lenape-Ho-King in upper Manhattan. I'm a blind choreographer, dancer, and dance educator. This piece is called an outback story. It has many different sources of inspiration, including the rampant wildfires that have been rushing through Australia since 2020, and also my own pet birds. I'm also inspired a lot by the books that I read, books about natural history, including The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Voleben, The Genius of Birds by Jennifer Ackerman, A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking, but also inspired by the fact that sometimes, as a blind, disabled person, I feel as if this world is not meant for me. When I learn about non-human life and how we are all truly evolved to be here, it gives me not only empathy for all of other living things in the world, but empathy for myself. Come on this journey for me. Let's come into this dance together. An Outback Story. A Dance for Abilities Dance Boston. Choreography, audio description, script, and narration by Krishna Washburn. Music composed and performed by Erin Rogers. Video editing by Alejandra Ospina. Performers: the parent giant gum eucalyptus tree, danced and voiced by Leslie Freeman Taub. The descendant giant gum eucalyptus tree, danced and voiced by Krishna Washburn. The budgerigar flock / one budgie, danced and voiced by Kate O'Day. Time itself, danced by Scynthia Charles and voiced by Noah J.T. Fenstermacher. An Outback Story. Welcome to a special, unique place, the Australian Outback, sometimes called the Never Never, because a human being can travel for days and never meet another person. Very few people live in the Australian Outback, but that's all right. That's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be the home for other kinds of non-human life. For millennia, the Outback has been an arid place, and the life here has evolved to be thrifty with water. There is perhaps no form of life with more knowledge and wisdom about water in the Outback than a giant gum eucalyptus tree. Here is a mature giant gum eucalyptus tree preparing to communicate with their descendant seedling. The firmness of their cell walls makes their movement very slow, but they rotate their trunk to face their seedling, rolling tall through the spine, rotating a heel before grounding it, sending a message through the mycelia network in their roots, curving kind, protective branches closer to the seedling.
Hello, my young one. The rain has come and gone, and I know you are excited. Take small, slow sips of water, my young one, and grow slowly. Make your body hard and strong. Never rush. My head slowly shakes. Never fear. My head tips down. You are only 1 century old, and the cycles of the world are still new to you. I understand. I am over 500 years old. I am wise, but I still have many centuries to live. I will guide you. My heart angles up slowly to the strong sun. This is where we are meant to live, young one. I raise my branches higher, slowly. never in a rush, at the speed that makes sense to one who will live for so long.
The young seedling, whose roots aren't as grounded, whose trunk is a little tilted, whose branches are a little compressed, angles an ear to listen. I want to grow, tipping an elbow up sharply. I want to be tall. I want to be covered in yellow flowers like you are, tipping up a hip anxiously. I have water. I could grow a lot. My eyes pop open. My ribs pop up.
If you grow slowly, my young one, you will be built to last. I tip my shining leaves and yellow flowers over you to give you a little shade for a moment, then tip them away to shifting my back tall again to give you a little sun.
I will do as you teach me. The descendant tree calms down. The eyes relax. The foot tries to melt to the ground, but can't quite. Growing is so exciting, though, pulsing energy out of the little shoots of my branches. My fingers splayed and then relaxed. A huge flock of 1,000 budgerigars, a shining green cloud of budgies, comes flying in.
We are thousands. We fly seeking water, sharing collective knowledge as we go, finding the water, swarming together. No hawk approaches us. We live fast, relentless, brave and small, but so great in our numbers. We hover low, change direction, dart forward, dart backwards, switch the path instantly, traverse the expanse, turn on the spot and double back, swell up high and come down. I am one of the flock. I quickly move my feet and wings, synchronize with the rest, stretch a leg and a wing, stretch a leg and a wing. Fondue, allongé, rond de jambe, promenade en face, push tombe back, cloche push tombe forward, forte tendu to the side, 3 steps and huge swivel around, 3 steps, relevé and détournant, pivot closed, 3 pas de chat and a pas de bourrée, 3 pas de chat and a pas de bourrée. A shallow pond, we alight. Success, success, a huge gum tree to perch upon. Tremble the wings, all of us in waves. We come to the water and drink. Flexed feet crossing one way, switching the other, elbows tipping back, chins lifting. We drink.
These animals drink, my parent and guide. May I tip upwards to you, jerk some limbs, beseech.
Take just one sip, my young one. I wave a few leaves your way.
I'd like to grow more. I would like branches long and strong where the birds can land. I could push through my xylem and phloem and stretch my cell walls upward. I could.
One day, my young one, the hundreds and thousands will make you their home. You have centuries still to live. Never rush.
We enter a parallel dimension where there is no matter, only time. What does it mean to be time? I am the universe's true constant. I move linearly, stepping forward, foot after foot, and cyclically, with my arm floating free in the circular pathway at my side, confident, my heart lifted. I understand true speed. I understand bird speed. I understand the shift of seasons. I am the shift of seasons, and yet there is something that I do not understand. I once believed that I was the strongest force in the world, And yet, something is affecting me, forcing me to speed up my pathway, my steps, my cycles. I think that force is greed. I think that force is capitalism, racism, ableism, speciesism, arrogance, and I'm forced to step faster than I should, forced to change the cycles of life on Earth, the patterns of climate, faster and faster until my arm swings in the shoulder socket almost uncontrolled by muscle or sense. My height is diminished. My chin drops. My knees start to buckle. What pathway is this? This isn't a line. I rotate around myself, losing my orientation, forced to go faster. No real direction. One knee buckles, the other. Now both arms swing in opposition, not matching. It's overwhelming. I'm not supposed to be this way. Time is supposed to flow, not crack. The arms flail, the elbows and wrists weaken. All the gears inside me keep churning, but I am forced to cross my ankles and land on the floor. The cycles of my arms gone. They drape limp in front of me. The universe isn't mine anymore. Time has passed.
For many consecutive years, uncontrolled fires have ripped across the outback. For many consecutive years, the precious rains are few and far between. The two gum trees are the same height they were when we were last with them, but they are not the same. The parent gum tree's branches are weak and splintered as they speak to their descendant tree.
My young one, things have not gone the way they should have gone. I am meant to exist on this ground for 8 centuries at least. But things have changed. It wasn't the fires, because I am strong enough to withstand fire. It wasn't the drought, because I can live through a century of drought. But both, together, I feel myself losing integrity. I feel it all the way at my roots. My heel is loosened from the floor, my little toe. I'm afraid of whether you might have to grow alone, unguided.
Do I know how to grow alone? Do I know how to grow alone? Do I? Answer me. My parent doesn't answer me. Let me try to push my roots deeper for a signal. I can't. The ground is so hard. I'm shaking. Do I know how to grow alone? I'm respiring and transpiring so hard. Do I know how to grow alone? Oh, a rush of water into my roots coming from my parent tree, their final gift to me. I haven't had any water in so long. What do I do? I rattle from bottom to top. What do I do? I grow. I unbend these knock knees. I roll up my back. I unfold these narrow, unformed branches to the red-hot sun. I reach straight up, surpassing the gentle shade of my parent tree. But my roots aren't strong. My body isn't strong. I crack. I snap at the wrists and fingers. This isn't a body meant to last 800 years.
Here we return. Now we are millions and millions, the mega flock of budgies desperate for water, water that we can't find. We flew over the fires and through the drought. We joined forces, combining our intelligence to survive. Our elders told us of a huge tree and a shallow pond, but the pond is gone, and the tree is dead and fragile, and that sapling is too weak to support us. We leave, keep traveling the scorched expanses, swirl away, our dance just as relentless, but bigger. Sweep around, dart forward, dart back, swirl around and rush one way, rush the other way, and we leave.
So the inspiration for this piece came from really a lot of different places, because in addition to my work with abilities, I also work for a climate change and sustainability nonprofit called Change is Simple. And so climate change is something that I'm thinking about pretty much every single day. And I've also worked in conservation science and seen firsthand how some conservation scientists think that they're trying to help and that they know better than the people who have lived and worked in an area for generations and know what they want and what they need. And that kind of thinking from the scientists is really a form of neocolonialism, to put it plainly. And so in this piece, it's an exploration of the word Anthropocene, which is the word that some scientists want to use to describe our current geological era, our current, the period of time influenced by climate change and how it's reflected in the earth and the geology of the earth, and thinking about how that definition is flawed because it positions all of humanity to be kind of equally responsible for the problem. It ignores the fact that this current crisis has been caused primarily by colonizers and capitalists and basically anyone driven to exploit other people and other things for the sake of their profit margins. So while working with the dancers on this piece, we played a lot with the idea of different margins. So how it can take up space, what's left in the margins, and how dancers can move in those spaces. We played a lot with the duality of the word and how it can be used to describe both profits and people and what those different things mean. All right, music is coming on. Kate, Carmen, and Scynthia stand facing sideways with their arms at their sides. The piano begins to play a few notes as their arms float up softly. They melt down to the ground, their bodies sinking towards the earth, only to grow upwards again, their arms stretching toward the sky, seeking the warmth and light of the sun.
Their arms then curve around their bodies as they turn to face the other side. They dive their torso downwards, and movement ripples across each vertebra of their back. The trio begins to repeat this sequence anew, their arms growing toward the sky and sinking back as their bodies curve and swim through space. With each repetition, their movements grow. They add a jump, a flourish of the arms, or a turn. This is nature in perfect harmony, a cycle undisturbed by outside forces. Life and death like a clockwork breath. Breathe in, grow. Breathe out, wilt. Breathe in, stretch. Breathe out, shrink. Breathe in, grow. Breathe out, wilt. The dancers follow this cycle of movement again and again, feeling the gentle caress of the air against their skin as they float through space, their muscles strong but soft to support their movements. National Geographic defines the Anthropocene as a period of time beginning around the 1950s, during which human activities have impacted the environment enough to constitute a distinct geological change. That is to say, it assumes that prior to that, the Earth was a stable system, and that since then, humans universally and collectively have caused our current climate crisis. Before the Anthropocene, before humans began to alter our planet with cars and carbon emissions, before we turned ecosystems into apartment buildings and landscapes into landfills, before everything was perfect and pristine. Almost a little too perfect. Carmen begins to change the texture of her movements as Scynthia and Kate continue to float through space. Carmen's movements are the same, the reaching arms sinking towards the ground, but something has changed. Small at first, but stark. Her arms jerk downwards towards the ground instead of melting. Her muscles tighten as her arm cuts upward through space, jaggedly waving back and forth. Her skin pushes against the air with each movement, its caress turned into resistance she must work against. The trio continues their cycle of movements, Carmen sharp, jagged, and full of resistance while Kate and Scynthia float. As Kate begins the cycle anew, she feels the disruption take hold of her muscles just as it did Carmen. Their arms now move in swift, sharp motions, working against the air and the environment, while Scynthia continues cycling through with soft, grounded movements. Finally, this shift begins to take hold of Scynthia as well. She resists movements, her arms firing sharply and erratically where they previously arced smoothly. All three dancers are now consumed by this battle. They push through the space through which they once floated, expending greater amounts of energy to create similar shapes, but less fluid. This is the Anthropocene, the shift from a pristine, untouched nature to one of struggle and fight, a climate universally imperiled by all of humanity. But is this reality? This so-called era that places the blame of climate change universally ignores that the problem was caused by capitalists and colonizers, and ignores the histories and relationships with the natural world that those who have been exploited by these forces long before the 1950s have had. Let's explore that reality. Kate, Carmen, and Scynthia break out of the cycle they've been stuck in, their arms circling behind them as their leg lifts and bends in front. Hands cross at the wrists. Arms stack on top of each other and then sharply break outwards. Muscles tense as they force their elbows and wrists open. Hands spread open in reach as they turn around themselves, their arms gathering inward as if swallowing everything around them to extract what resources they can. They reach downward, sending their energy toward the earth before they pull up and extend their leg out to the side. Their head snaps to look off into the distance as their arms are cast aside in the opposite direction. A careless motion, they keep moving forward. They bring a leg up in front of them, thigh almost chest, before pushing it down and stepping on it, taking up as much space as possible. They repeat on the other side, spin, and circle their arms overhead and behind. Anything that does not grow their profit margins is pushed to the margin. People are pushed off their native lands, our climate pushed to the brink of collapse, communities of disabled folks barred from getting the care and equipment they need because of incessant greed. Hands come together and pat gently across the air as if patronizing those they do not see as equals. Dancers rock side to side, holding an imaginary baby in their arms before swooping arms back in a motion that would certainly drop the baby, and then arms forward into fists. Backhand punches down toward the front thigh, and pulls the leg up to kick out. Dancers step forward onto the foot they've pulled out from beneath them, and then kick it out behind them, hands still reaching forward. Their other hand traces across the front of the body. Hands come together and then move to the opposite side. Hands flick out and away from the body, still casting off the well-being of people and planet for the sake of greed. The 4 dancers fold over. They straighten and their hands reach left and ripple in front of their bodies, arms swaying through space. Arms circle overhead, and the hand hooks behind the head to pull it down to the ground. Head circles down to the ground and up. Hand reaches out again, swaying in front of the body before Scynthia, Carmen, and Kate grab it at the elbow and force it back. They try once again to sway the arm, but this time it is caught by their other arm. Its motion stops short. Hands scoop down towards the ground and back up, before slowly floating toward their sides, barely acted on by anything but gravity. Their right hand traces across their chest, then out towards the side. They are trapped in a system that does not see their humanity. Scynthia, Kate, and Carmen turn towards the left as their hands move up, and then turn to the other side and repeat. Arms drop to the side before forcefully smacking their legs and flinging out away from their bodies once, twice, 3 times. Arms out away from them as the back leg extends, and they feel the immense pull of their body in different directions. They repeat 4 times, getting pulled further and further by these forces until they can no longer take it. Head circles as their bodies relax, no longer feeling the stretch and pull. Their movements start to have a soft, floating texture again. But this is not a return to our perfect, pristine, untouched, and ultimately imaginary worlds of the time before the Anthropocene. One arm connects to the other and pushes it around. It comes back around again. Arms gather in front as bent right leg lifts. Arms and legs extend out. Now they move as if to say, this is what our world could be. If we bring people in from the margins, listen and learn, and start seeing value beyond profit margins. Dancers step across their bodies to turn behind them before setting their hands in the air in front of them. Their hands pull them down to the earth before they raise again, cupping them around something precious. They close their hands over it, turn elbows outward, and hold it in their arms before releasing and catching it again. Left arm straightens upward as right straightens down and both arms open to the side. Arms rise and open forward and scoop overhead, right left, right left. They turn around themselves to bring arms in close, and then bring their arms up and around to caress their faces.
To end out the show, I'm thrilled to premiere a solo work that I created with Krishna Washburn that really explored the themes of water insecurity, a theme that I know well, as some of my family members are experiencing in the Mississippi area, as well as thinking about how a variety of Black and Brown communities in the country are experiencing water insecurity, and how, with the help of technology, Moses West AWG, which translates humidity from the air into potable water, creating thousands of gallons of water a day for free for communities, how we can reimagine and think creatively of the types of solutions that can come when community comes together, as well as the strain during this time and how that strain has affected folks from children through elders and everyone in between. I think it was a joy working with Krishna for the first time and learning about how I can translate my work into work that works with her, not just her energy, but also being a blind ballerina, and how all of those kind of intertwine into the work that you see today. And I will let Krishna end it off with the audio descriptions created for this work, which I am honored to be able to create and to be able to work with those themes with Krishna on. So thank you. Krishna starts standing facing us. Right hand slowly rises with the water trickling. Drip, drip, drip. It flicks as her body continues to react even more. Thinking of how freely water flows through the earth, but not to communities facing water disparities. For others, it continues to flow to different corners of the earth. Krishna arabesque contracts into herself, arabesque again, reaching towards the back as she contracts in, not facing us, contemplating the strain of sourcing water when it doesn't easily come through one's pipes. Krishna releases into a lunge facing left, then front with arms swimming through water at her side. Body forming a T shape and releases, arms circle overhead and into a pirouette. She walks backward on her toes, flicking raindrops as if trying to replenish community with not enough to spare. She pirouettes again, sliding into a lunge with curved arms as head rotates, and a breath. Reaching into different directions, stretching even further to make water ends meet, she slowly spins, with one arm curved in and the other extended as her back left leg is bent behind. Releases. Hip bumps the hands together as a rub and cupped hands together reach right as she arabesque, seeking sources of water from the heavens when earth becomes barren. Hands release to the ground in the hopes that can trickle through the soil and regrow hope in our infrastructures. As the music shifts, Krishna rises and collects droplets of water from the atmosphere like an AWG. Feet switch, tapping the alternate knee as she continues collecting droplets. Like Moses West AWG, translating droplets from humid air to potable water, we are dreaming the solutions to our community's problems right from the air. Krishna skips left to right, facing front and back. Facing front, left arm extends up as right arm and leg extend out. It lowers and slides against the floor and then back up as arms extend out. Krishna taps foot as she rotates, facing different directions. Pausing with feet together as cupped hands rise, she bends deeply to the ground with outstretched arms, scooped arms searching for water from the ground, arms reaching to the skies for hope as she rises, reaching into a lunge to the right as torso twist, arms, faces front, with dry hands brushing against each other, arms and her body. Feeling the parched body as she water rations for her entire day, from showering to brushing teeth to cooking, the many ways in which her life is measured by droplets, reaches to the sky for more water droplets for a better way of living, spinning in between around the space, symbolizing the ironic hurricane that occurs when life is majorly disrupted, when climate change and institutional racism impact health and life overall. Slides into a lunge to each corner with one arm scooped up. Searching for water in all these corners and bringing it to her heart where her life and community are strong. She reaches into an arabesque with arms in front of her, releases to stand with one arm bent behind her as if holding a jug from the long lines of water distribution sites. She repeats with both arms bent behind her, even more strain, slams them to the ground in a moment of righteous anger. She repeats to arabesque and rises with both arms bent behind her as the left leg bends in and extends out. She drops those jugs again as limbs stretch and slide into a split. She rises as legs swing back and forth like a metronome. She rolls to her stomach to then slowly stand as hands pat her body. She walks towards us as arms cut across torso, walking back and forth in the search for new water source once distribution sites run out. Facing right, arms windmill back to then drop to the ground and back bend. Legs arc up and over as she deeply bends, elbows resting on knees as if dehydration is causing joint instability. Slowly stands with bent arms raised. Arms extend up, torso releases down as dehydrated bones fold into each other. Hands make a wide circle as if crafting a jug in renewed hope from dry soil. Fingers interlock and rise overhead as torso deeply bends and slowly rises until she stands. Legs unstable underneath the weight of jugs and health deteriorating in this climate and health crisis. Krishna slowly walks in a circle, making sure all notice this uncomfortable sight of children through elders having to fight for their right to clean water. She drops to sit, arms release, legs crossed. Legs straighten and stretch, then straighten again. Wrists connect as it rises overhead and lifts her torso. It floats down like water. She rises into a side plank with one arm extending up and over, circling her face. She rises to stand, grabbing particles of water from the air. Arms sway with the breeze. She slides to the right. Fingers articulate a bit more as she sways with the breeze. And then spins. Leg extends to the side with arms rising, then flowing down. Hand resumes flicking, contemplating where water can be accessed and how to ensure we all can receive it. For the elders who have to burden carrying jugs of water for their help, hands come to mouth and extend as she consumes water for all generations to thrive. She reaches into a lunge with hands to face, contemplating why our elders have long struggled for basic rights and families struggle to nourish their children. She reaches forward, calling us to action. Stretching into an arabesque like those with disabilities know how to stretch essentials to survive, offering our lessons in activism as Krishna spins to the left. She swings right, then left leg to side as if the ticking metronome, counting down the time to revolution. She spins again to the left, left hand flowing along with the water. Embracing natural water sources for all. Embracing AWG water sources for all. For those in Jackson, Flint, and all facing water insecurity. We will reclaim the essentials to life. We will reclaim our right to exist. you again for watching the show. We really appreciate your support in supporting a variety of dancers becoming choreographers and taking on more leadership into the work. If you want to continue to see shows like this, please do support us by coming to our upcoming events, which you can check out on abilitiesdanceboston.org/events, as well as donating and to be able to continue to provide unlimited free tickets to our work, as well as sliding scale rates for our workshops and our community engagement program. We cannot exist without support from folks like you, so thank you again for watching the show.